Alright, folks, so this is Gathering of Soldiers Part 1, Section 2, and Chapter 2, which is just called as, what was it? I forget. Oh, The Street of Great Struggle. Yeah, you'll also see it below in the comments. Alright, so, well, I forgot to do this last time, which is the disclaimer. Okay. No, that's the other pictures. Alright, so this is the disclaimer. Stay for 3 seconds and boom, next page. Yeah, these are like I'll probably go back to these like once these go like storyline comes up to there. But as for now, I'm going to resume. Alright, cool now. Keeks laughed. You're popular amongst us. Other fortress keepers like you very much, and they often say good things about you. Like, that you're always ready to counsel anyone and give full respect to anybody, regardless of their status. He suddenly flinched and looked back. Hey, do you hear that banging sound? Ephraim frowned and looked around their surroundings. I think I know where that's coming from. Come, follow me. Along the way, they got Pasios and Lucio to follow as well. Watch over the cart for us, Ephraim said to Andel and Edmund. After that, they crossed over the ransacked hallway of the defense building and came to a door at the corner. Then Ephraim slowly opened it. What the? Ephraim shouted upon hearing a cracking sound. Commander Lapidus slowly got up from the barrel that he was sitting on. Then he looked around to see what was happening so far. Suddenly, Commander Lucas got into his view. Commander Lucas grimaced while walking towards Commander Lapidus. Hey Lapidus, why are you dozing around like that? You're setting up such an awful example to your men. Commander Lapidus chuckled. Well, the previous raid was tedious, so I took some rest. Some? Do you really think that was some? Seriously, you and Kairos just don't know when to get serious, huh? Commander Lucas said. Commander Lapidus smiled. Relax, take it easy, Lucy boy. Commanders need to be rested for proper moments when their soldiers need them the most. He then looked at some of his soldiers dozing around him. Hey guys, it's time to get up. He looked back at Commander Lucas. See, I have these 4 nicely rested soldiers ready to help out with those loading up the raided goods. Commander Lucas sighed. Come on, Lapidus. We both know that if you and those 4 guys worked along with us in loading up the goods, then everything would be ready in time Hercules comes back. Oh, come on, that is not true. Just 5 of us missing won't even make a dent in overall work progress, Commander Lapidus said. That would be true if none of us knew about you guys resting. Commander Lucas started clenching his fists. But we did know that, and other guys were slacking even more because you and those guys were taking a sweet nap. And that'll definitely make overall progress to slow down. So, before there's any hostility between us, get back to work. Commander Lapidus chuckled. Yeah, I get you. I'll go back to work. He started walking away, but suddenly looked back at Commander Lucas. But Lucas, don't try to wrap me up too. It won't work for you. Only Lefteris is able to do that. Commander Lucas scoffed, but said no more. Commander Lapidus' men followed their commander. Commander Lapidus stretched while watching other soldiers loading up the wagons. Gosh, are those full already? He said to himself and moved over to look at the 2 wagons that were side by side. He then looked inside and flinched. Oh my, they are full. Engineers, come here right now. The engineers came over. What is it, Commander? Karpos said. Commander Lapidus pointed at the wagons. These wagons are ready, so drive them to our ships, unload the goods really fast, then return back here. He cleared his throat. You need to do that real fast, or else you'll end up meeting the enemies instead of us here, okay? Placidus gasped. You're not serious about that, Commander, are you? Commander Lapidus smiled. I am serious about that. We need to catch up fast. He pointed at the heaps of ready goods. Do you see those hills? We need to take care of them, but we won't be able to do it if you guys don't unload these wagons. Constance flinched, but simply sighed and shook his head. Don't be so grumpy, Constance, because you'll get to rest along the way there, Commander Laputo said. Then the engineers reluctantly got the wagons ready and began their trip back to the ships. Lord Pericles pointed at the enemies. They're pulling back! Throw your darts now! Somehow the enemy soldiers were retreating, but not in clear order, since some were taking the western strait and others were taking smaller straits or hiding in the buildings nearby. It didn't seem like an all-out route to Lord Pericles, so he decided to pause to think out a counter-strategy. When the soldiers were done with throwing their darts, Lord Pericles pointed at the spare darts, arrows, bolts that were littered on the ground in front of him and the soldiers. Lifters, second squad, go ahead and pick up those munitions and store them on our cart. The ordered soldiers went about collecting such munitions, and Lord Pericles resumed thinking. Commander Proteus approached Lord Pericles. Hey, Pericles, why did you make us hold here? Commander Lefteris approached him. Yeah, we could have slashed them all. Lord Pericles closed his eyes and took a couple breaths. It's because their retreat didn't seem like they were routing, but may have been a calculated move on their part. Yeah, but our guys are all agitated because we didn't push, Commander Proteus said. Lord Pericles raised his hand. Hold up, Proteus. He looked at Commander Proteus. Are you hearing what I'm hearing right now? Proteus spread out his arms. Come on, Pericles, stop messing around. It's not a joke right now. Lord Pericles turned around to look at the soldiers who were constantly making noise, talking to each other, moving around. Silence! Immediately, the soldiers stopped whatever they were doing and remained in their position. Therefore, Lord Pericles looked back at Commander Proteus. Now, try to hear, and focus your ears over there. He pointed at the far end of the western street. Commander Proteus was grumbling at first, but soon he became very calm. Lord Pericles nodded. Now you hear it too, huh? Commander Lefteris was still at a loss. He did not understand what was going on. What is it you're hearing? Lord Pericles looked at Commander Lefteris. The footsteps. By the sound of it, we're hearing tens. No, hundreds of the enemies, possibly heavily armed. He slowly shook his head. What we have dealt with just now will be a joke compared to what we'll be facing later on, so I suggest that we make a tactical retreat right now. He looked at Commander Proteus. Proteus, I understand our soldiers' agitation, but I don't want them to die fighting unnecessary battles. So plead that you agree to retreat along with the rest of us. After a couple of deep breaths, Commander Proteus nodded. You're right. It's better to have our soldiers agitated to fight and the return ship's spirits alive and well, than to have them silent and awkward like the last time. Lord Pericles sighed in relief. Thanks for your cooperation, Proteus. He then turned around and looked at the spy who was waiting for a long time. Hey, thanks for keeping up with your errands, but I have more for you right now. Let Commander Kairos at the roof know that we'll pull out soon, but before that, he needs to pull out first. After telling him, go to the coastal street and tell Commander Takis to pull out. Then, wait for us at the point where Western Street meets the coastal street. Do you understand? The spy nodded in confidence, so Lord Pericles sent him away. There was more cracking sound. Back to the inside the building. There was more cracking sound, and suddenly, another door at the far end of the room fell down. From it emerged 3 Turks. Don't worry, I'll go finish them again. Keeks tried to charge, but Ephraim quickly grabbed the end part of the coat. Keeks tripped and almost fell down, so he looked back at Ephraim. Let me go! Let me go! Ephraim pointed at the enemies. Keeks, look at them closely. 2 of them wield halberd, and the other 2 have short swords and shields. He slowly started pulling out his sword. And plus, they are focused on us, so you wouldn't last long against any of them. He then pulled Keeks behind him and pulled out his shield from his back. So Keeks, get the crossbowmen from the roof to help us in case more come along while us 3 will fend off those 3. And finally, he put his visor down. Keeks looked around and marveled at Apacios and Lucio, who already had their helmet visors down and weapons drawn. "Trust us, we'll handle them," Apacios said, and Lucio nodded. Thus, Keeks rushed away to seek help. The Turks were careful in keeping their distance because Apacios and Lucio both had their siphons, with fire flickering in the dragon's mouth. They knew that charging into flames was a suicidal idea. However, they would have succeeded had they charged it immediately, because Ephraim's group was initially shocked and disorganized to have come up with a formidable defense. Luck was on Ephraim's side, and they were able to have a small break in the middle to get everyone ready for some action. Suddenly, the halberd Turk shouted something and charged at Ephraim. The two other Turks followed closely behind and kept a cautious distance to not get in the way of swinging halberd, but also close enough to be of immediate support to the halberd Turk. Therefore, Ephraim raised up his shield to block the Turk's downward blow, but sadly the Turk faked this downward blow and immediately swung the halberd to Ephraim's left shoulder and smashed him towards the wall at his right. It was then Apacios and Lucius started shooting the siphon, being careful not to get the flame reach Ephraim. The halberd Turk caught on flame, but he wasn't immobilized, so he immediately let go of his halberd and kicked at Apacios' stomach, sending him crashing to the floor behind him. At this point, the other two Turks had lunged onto Ephraim and clashed on his armor, perhaps testing to see if it was really durable. Thus, Ephraim immediately got up to resist. He picked up his sword and swung at the Turk closest to him, but the guy dodged and kicked on his shield, sending him reeling back to the other corner. Ephraim glanced at his comrades fighting the flame Turk who had just walked out of the room, passing over the defense line he had initially made in front of the entrance. Lucio shot at the halberd Turk once more, but it seemed useless since the enemy kicked on him real hard and sent him crashing on the floor just like what had happened to Apacios. After that, the halberd Turk took off his coat and was immediately freed from flame. "Commander! Commander! Officer Ephraim needs your help!" Keeks jumped up and down in front of Commander Kairos, trying to gain his attention. Commander Kairos lifted his visor and looked at Keeks. "Huh? Did you just say that Ephraim needs help?" Yes. He's fighting against 3 enemies." Keeks couldn't control his agitation. Commander Kairos immediately stopped what he was doing. "Enemies? Down there?" "Yes! He'll die if you don't help him soon." Keeks clenched his fists and looked up at Commander Kairos, pleading. Commander Kairos chuckled for a long time. "Oh, did you say that he'll die? Come on, give him some more credit. He has survived much worse than this." He paused since he heard a gunshot coming below them. "Alright, get the crossbowmen to go down there along with you. That gunshot means someone's life is in danger." Keeks brightened up and went away to take the crossbowmen with him. Some time passed and Commander Kairos saw a spy who rushed up to him. "Commander, Lord Pericles wants you and your men to pull out immediately." Commander Kairos flinched. "Wait, is he serious? Already?" "Yes, that was his order. I overheard him saying that there are more enemies coming, so we need to retreat," the spy said. Commander Kairos nodded. "Understood. I'll do as he ordered. Go on your way now." The spy went away and Commander Kairos looked around at the roof. The crossbowmen had already left, so it was just archers and he was just getting accustomed to enjoying the scenery which was around the building. But when he heard the spy's message, he was dismayed. He didn't want to leave just yet, but linger for a bit more. Yet still, he couldn't deny Lord Pericles' order. Therefore, he sighed and went about telling his soldiers to start packing up to leave. Edvin chuckled. "They're being loud over there, huh?" "Yeah, probably Apacios got into another argument with Lucio," Undel said. "Good grief. It's funny at first, but when you start paying attention to what they argue about, it drags you down since they fight over pretty much nothing," Edvin said. Undel sighed. "It's even worse when Seth argues with Lucio." Edvin cursed. "I know, right? I was just about to say that. He is our age, but then he continues being as childish as Lucio." Undel sighed. "Yeah, it seems they just have more energy than us. That's why they can do that." "Guess so. No energy to put in heavy work, but every energy to argue and carol, Edwin said. Bam! Andal flinched. Snap! Hey, Edwin, what was that? Edwin shrugged. Well, I guess Apacius got really angry and shot his gun to silence Lucio. No way, dude. Apacius isn't that irresponsible, Andal said. Who knows? Maybe it was Lucio. Edwin looked out at the window. But no matter what happens, we need to stay here because those Turks out there, they're waiting for us to leave our post. Wait, I hear someone crying out. Sounds like Apacios. Gosh, he seems very angry, Andal said. Edwin nodded. Yeah, Lucio won't stop even when Apacios shot the guns. And now he's making Apacios shout out loud for him to stop being a brat. Andal looked at the Siphonator's car. But then their guns are here, so what was all that about? Edwin looked at Andal. Come on, fool. Only 2 guns are in the cart. That means someone took the last one with him. Remember, all of the Siphonators are also gunners. Andal chuckled. Whoops, I forgot. Lucio tried to get up, but he was kicked down a second time by the enemy. Then, the Turk went on kicking at Lucio's side, totally ignoring Apacios' presence, out of arrogance that they are weak and won't do him much harm. After a round of kicks, the Turk lifted his sword to stab it through Lucio's neck because there was no armor there. Apacios came in the nick of time to drive his sword through the Turk's side, or so he thought he could. After all, he couldn't pierce the armor, but the force from the stab hindered the Turk's aim and he himself missed on stabbing Lucio's neck. But still, Apacios was standing awkwardly because he couldn't kill the enemy with one strike. So he was immediately kicked on the stomach again by the Turk, who got very furious. The Turk kicked Apacios. I told you to stay down! He banged on Apacios' head with the butt of the sword. You hear me? He grabbed Apacios' neck and rammed him against the wall. Now, stay down! Then the Turk slowly went back to Lucio, who was again frozen in place, looking at everything that was unfolding around him. Ephraim was still in the room, busily fending off the enemy's strikes here and there, while Apacios was doing whatever he could to keep them alive. How is he even moving right now? Thought Lucio as he gazed at Apacios lying down like a corpse. Soon, his thoughts vanished and he was repeatedly kicked for the second time. On the other hand, Apacios couldn't give up, not after all that he had been through. He learned in the beginning that sitting down cold and frozen was not the answer to the threat. Thomas taught him. Ephraim taught him. Everyone somehow taught him in his beginning months that he had to fight till the end. His munitions weren't out. It was just that they weren't being utilized right. The Siphons may have worked against clumped up enemy soldiers who were focused on other soldiers, but this time it was different. He brought it in just in case, and he had thrown it down in the beginning to use a siphon. It was his gun. What a late realization. He would have shot that gun in the beginning, taken out Halbert Turk first, then they could have killed off the other 2 easily. He looked at Lucio getting beaten up. He got angry that he was of no help to the guy who was always there for him in the fortress, telling him all sorts of information regarding the place so that he knows it like the back of his hand now. Sadly, he could only move slowly because he was still very dizzy by the ramming he had received against the wall. But he still picked up the gun. He had loaded it before, so the only thing he needed was to fire, and he had to fire in the siphon. He just needed that string in the dragon's mouth. Hey, I promise that I'll never give up. You're not finished with me till you have killed me, Apacios shouted. Immediately afterwards, the Turk turned around. He was confident and slow at first, but not when he saw Apacios trying to aim at him. He suddenly moved really fast and ran against Apacios, then jumped at him. Boom! The stone balls successfully pierced through the Turk's chest, but he still crashed upon Apacios and drove his sword to Apacios' side. Apacios still felt stinging pain rushing up to his head. It did awake him from his dizziness, but the pain was so much that he cried out loud. Ephraim was busy fending off 2 Turks at a time. He knew that he had to finish them off fast and get his comrades to help. and get to his comrades to help, but the Turks' defensive skills were very good, so the fight seemed to go on forever. However, he suddenly heard the gunshot. He wasn't sure from whom it was because he thought they all left their guns at the siphonator cart and instead carried the siphons with them. But the noise was just too close for it to have been from Andel and Edvin, so he deemed it certain that either Apasios or Lucio took one when he wasn't looking. Short moment later, he heard someone shouting out loud. Huh? That sounded like Apasios. I guess he's desperate and calling for help. Ephraim knew that he had to act quickly if he didn't want to see his two comrades dead when he was done with the two Turks. Maybe he could get over with Lucio being dead. But Apasios, no, not him. Apasios was such a good student under him. He really didn't want to see that guy dying before his sight. But then, those persistent Turks were still in his way, always blocking his stabs, slashes, and strikes. He really had to get rid of their shields at least. If not, there was no way out of their defense. That idea got him to think, and he decided to take on a desperate measure. First, he put his sword back in his sheath, fast. Then, to his enemy's surprise, threw down his shield. After that, by using his enemy's uncertain moment, he rushed at one of them, grabbed the shield with his hands, and forced it right, making the Turk's whole body move along with it, crashing him against his comrade, who was standing at his left. The enemy slashed and struck at Ephraim's body, but the full plate protected him from any harm. Even though Ephraim was Thomas' close friend, he wasn't like Thomas. Instead, closer to the total opposite from him. Whereas Thomas, if needed, willingly rushes into the thick of the fight without hesitation, Ephraim stays back, behind the safety of shield and armor, and even still is careful in stepping into the enemy zone of control. That kind of attitude cost him both his time and energy during this whole series of fight. In the beginning, he was afraid of charging at the enemy that he remained still like a statue, hiding behind his shield, yet he still received damage from the halberd Turk who easily outsmarted him. Had he charged at him too, he could have delivered the same damage to his opponent who would have surely expected him to be standing still. Still, it was better to be late than never, and Ephraim was successful in knocking down his two enemies by brute force. He soon sat on top of a Turk and delivered constant punches to that wretched guy's face. Soon the guy was really knocked out. Then he swiftly moved over to the other guy and pinned him down. Again he delivered constant punches to the second guy's face and soon knocked him out as well. After that, he pulled out his sword and shoved it through both guys' necks, making two fountains of blood in the middle of the room. You haven't finished your enemy until you've completely killed him. Even if they don't die instantly, they won't be able to move due to their connection being broken from their heads, thought Ephraim as he rushed out of the room. Ephraim was shocked after seeing what happened in the hallway. Apasios was sitting by the wall, seemingly knocked out or killed. Lucio was lying on the floor knocked out some ways ahead of him, and the halberd Turk was knocked out in front of Apasios, and above all, nobody was moving or giving any hint of being alive. Therefore, he moved over to the halberd Turk first and drove the sword to the neck, making the third fountain of blood. Suddenly, Apasios stirred. Ephraim, you didn't have to do that. Ephraim chuckled. I have to do this. You haven't finished your enemy until you've completely killed him. Okay, thanks. Go ahead and check Lucio. I'm fine, Apasios said. Ephraim gazed at Apasios. Well, you don't sound fine, but I'll go check on him and return back to you. When Ephraim was walking towards Lucio, he heard some footsteps coming from the stairs, so he looked up and saw Keeks. Officer Ephraim, I was so worried about you. Everything good? Keeks ran down the stairs and in no time, he was standing in front of Ephraim. Ephraim was about to say something, but Keeks cut him short. I brought reinforcements for you. Where are the enemies? Where are they? Ephraim lifted up his visor and smiled. They are gone. We told you to trust us that we'll handle them. Magnus suddenly appeared behind Keeks. Indeed, boy, I told you that you don't need to worry about Officer Ephraim. Ephraim chuckled at Magnus. Yeah, but more will come soon. There's an exit door that has been forced open. Seth appeared behind Magnus. Really? There was another exit here? Officer Kaya appeared next to Seth. Well, duh, Seth. There's always a back door to any building. Seth slowly looked around and even went to the room to check it out. Oh, Ephraim, you should have spared those guys for me to finish. Then Seth felt something and he slowly turned around to look at Apostios, who was waving at him. Is that you, Apostios? He rushed over. Oh gosh, did you get hurt anywhere? Apostios pointed at the part he got stabbed. The man stabbed me here. Seth gazed at the armor. It's fine, your armor protected you. That's the side effect of lamellar armor. It's much more flexible than full plate armor, but if you get struck hard, you will feel more pain than if you were wearing full plate. Look at this huge dent. Maybe he ran at you before striking, delivering all the force on you like that. Oh, really? Apostios immediately stood up. He felt good as new upon hearing that he wasn't hurt. Everyone else looked at him weirdly. Of course, a guy who was previously sitting down frowning as if it was the end of his life, suddenly standing up was a strange scene indeed. Seth cleared his throat and looked around at those around him. Okay then, I guess Apostios isn't hurt. Let's go see what Ephraim wants us to do. Soon they got around Ephraim and asked what they should do. Ephraim looked back. Hey Kai, stay here and watch over Lucio, because we need to do something in that room. He started walking. The rest of you, follow me right now. Alright, so I'll end it right there for the second part. And I'll continue on the video.